Her name was Danielle Brooks, a hard-working single black mom with nothing but a small apartment, a 6-year-old daughter, and a heart big enough to love the whole world. Life had beaten her down, but it never broke her spirit. She was the kind of woman who would give her last meal to a hungry stranger, even if it meant going to bed hungry herself. But one night, while walking home from her shift at the diner, Danielle made a choice that would change everything. She found a little boy shivering in the cold, clutching the hand of his ailing grandmother. Most people would have walked past, but not Danielle. She took them in, unaware that her act of kindness was about to put her family in the crosshairs of powerful people. And the following Monday, when a black SUV rolled into her neighborhood, Danielle realized her life would never be the same again. Before I take you deep into this emotional story of courage, sacrifice, and transformation, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our powerful life stories. The morning sun barely peeked through the thin curtains of a small 2-bedroom apartment on the city's south side. Inside, the scent of reheated oatmeal lingered in the air. Danielle Brooks, a 32-year-old single black mom, was already moving with the kind of quiet determination life had taught her. Her 6-year-old daughter, Amara, sat at the kitchen table, swinging her legs, her small hands clutching a spoon. Danielle smiled, brushing her daughter's hair gently. "Eat up, baby. You've got a big spelling test today." Amara grinned. "I know all the words, Mommy." Danielle kissed her forehead, though her mind was already racing. Rent was due next week. The electric bill had a red notice taped across it. And the double shift at the diner tonight meant she wouldn't see her daughter until late. Life hadn't been kind to Danielle. Abandoned by her husband when Amara was just 2, she had carried the weight of 2 roles on her shoulders ever since. She worked long hours, juggled bills, and still made sure her daughter felt loved, even when exhaustion tugged at her bones. Yet beneath the weariness, Danielle had something rare, a heart that refused to harden. On her way to work, neighbors often stopped to wave at her, children smiled when she passed by, and even the old church ladies praised her kindness. She was the kind of woman who would lend her last dollar to a struggling friend, even if it meant going without lunch herself. But kindness often comes tested in ways we least expect. And for Danielle, that test was waiting just around the corner, one that would not only challenge her, but forever change the course of her life. That Friday evening, the diner was packed with customers. Danielle moved swiftly between tables, balancing trays of greasy burgers and tall glasses of sweet tea. The smile on her face masked the exhaustion in her bones. She had already been on her feet for 9 hours. By the time her shift ended, the streets were dark, the neon lights from corner stores flickering against the cracked sidewalks. Danielle pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders and hurried home, eager to check on Amara, who was with a trusted neighbor. As she turned the corner near the park, she slowed down. Something caught her eye. There, beneath the dim glow of a broken street lamp, sat a boy, no more than 8 or 9 years old. His clothes were too thin for the chilly night, his sneakers worn down to the threads. Beside him, leaning against a bench, was an elderly woman. Her skin was pale, her frame frail, and her breathing shallow, each exhale sounding like a struggle. The boy held her hand tightly, his face a mask of fear and determination. Danielle hesitated for a moment. Her life was already heavy. Could she afford to carry more? But as she looked at them, her heart clenched. The boy's eyes weren't just tired, they were desperate. She walked closer, her voice gentle. "Hey, sweetheart, are you two all right?" The boy lifted his head. His eyes were wide, guarded, yet filled with silent pleading. "My grandma's sick," he said softly. We don't have anywhere to go." Danielle looked at the old woman. The woman's lips trembled as though she wanted to speak, but all that came out was a whisper of air. Her head rested back against the bench, her body too weak to hold itself up. Danielle's chest tightened. She glanced at the boy again, and something inside her broke. She knelt down, her voice firmer but still tender. "What's your name, honey?" "Malik," he answered, squeezing his grandma's hand. "And this is your grandma?" He nodded. "Her name's Ruth. We've been walking all day. I think she needs a doctor." Danielle swallowed hard. She thought of her bills, her long shifts, her small apartment that already felt too crowded. But she also thought of Amara. What if this were her one day? What if no one helped? Her decision came without another thought. "All right, Malik," she said. "Come on. Both of you. You're coming with me." For the first time, Malik's lips trembled into the smallest smile. He rose to his feet, carefully helping his grandmother stand. Danielle slipped an arm under the woman's fragile shoulders, steadying her. As they made their way to her apartment, Danielle didn't know that this single act of compassion would set off a chain of events leading straight to a mysterious black SUV that would soon appear in her life. By the time they reached Danielle's small apartment, it was past midnight. She unlocked the door quietly, careful not to wake Amara, who was asleep on the pull-out couch. The boy, Malik, looked around timidly. The warmth of the apartment contrasted sharply with the cold night air. His eyes fell on the modest furniture, the walls decorated with Amara's colorful drawings, and the smell of lavender detergent that clung to the room. Danielle guided Grandma Ruth to the recliner chair in the living room. The older woman's breathing was shallow, her chest rising and falling with effort. Danielle quickly fetched a blanket, tucking it around her. "You rest here," Danielle said softly. "I'll get you some warm tea." Ruth's eyes fluttered open just long enough to meet Danielle's. There was gratitude in her gaze, even if she didn't have the strength to say the words. Meanwhile, Malik stood near the door, shifting from foot to foot, as if afraid that at any moment someone might throw them back into the night. Danielle noticed the way his small fists clenched, his shoulders tense like a child who had learned to expect rejection. She crouched down to his level. "You're safe here, Malik," she told him. "No one's turning you away tonight." His lips quivered. We didn't mean to bother anyone. Grandma said we'd figure it out. But she's been getting worse. I didn't know what to do." Danielle's heart sank. She reached out and gently touched his shoulder. "You did the right thing, baby. You stayed with her. That makes you very brave." Malik's eyes welled up, but he quickly wiped them with the back of his hand, trying not to cry. Danielle stood and took a deep breath. She knew what she was doing was risky. She barely had enough to provide for her own daughter. Now she was adding two strangers into the mix, one of them gravely ill. But deep down, Danielle believed something. When someone is put in your path, maybe it's for a reason. That night, she made up a small bed for Malik on a pallet beside Amara's couch. When Amara stirred in her sleep and rolled over, her tiny hand brushed Malik's. Instead of pulling away, he held it gently, as though it grounded him. Danielle stood in the doorway, watching. Her heart softened. Despite the uncertainty, despite the fear of what tomorrow might bring, she knew she had made the right choice. Yet, outside, the world was already stirring with forces she could not see. Because kindness, though pure, often draws attention, from both angels and shadows. And it would be the shadows that would first come knocking. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting golden stripes across the living room floor. Danielle woke earlier than usual, her body stiff from sleeping on the edge of her bed. For a brief moment, she thought last night was just a dream. But when she stepped into the living room, reality greeted her. Malik was sitting cross-legged on the floor, carefully flipping through one of Amara's picture books. Amara, still in her pajamas, was beside him, showing him her favorite pages. Both children looked up when Danielle appeared. "Mommy," Amara said excitedly, "this is my new friend Malik." Danielle smiled, though 1,000 worries crowded her mind. Rent, groceries, doctor's visits. She forced those thoughts aside. "Good morning, you two. Did you sleep all right?" Malik nodded shyly. "Thank you for letting us stay." Danielle's eyes softened. "You don't need to thank me, sweetheart. You and your grandma needed help, that's all that matters." She glanced over at Grandma Ruth, still resting in the recliner. Her breathing was shallow but steadier than the night before. Danielle made a mental note. She'd need to call in a favor at the free clinic nearby. She didn't have health insurance to cover strangers, but maybe someone would show the same kindness she tried to give. By mid-morning, the apartment had a new rhythm. Malik helped Amara with her coloring while Danielle prepared breakfast, eggs, toast, and a small bowl of fruit. It wasn't much, but the way Malik devoured his plate made it feel like a feast. "Slow down, baby," Danielle chuckled. "Food's not running away." Malik looked embarrassed, but Amara nudged him with a giggle. "It's okay. I used to eat like that when Mommy first made pancakes for me." The laughter that followed warmed the apartment, filling it with something Danielle hadn't felt in a long time, family energy. But beneath the lightness, Danielle noticed small things about Malik. How he flinched at loud noises from the street. How he always kept one eye on his grandmother, even while playing. How, when Amara offered him her favorite doll, he handled it like something too fragile to belong to him. That evening, when the children dozed off, Danielle sat across from Grandma Ruth, who was awake and sipping slowly from a cup of tea. "You've raised a good boy," Danielle said softly. Ruth's frail hands trembled slightly as she set the cup down. "He's all I've got left." Her voice was faint, each word costing her breath. "And I don't know how much longer I'll be here to look after him." Danielle's chest tightened. She wanted to ask more. Where was Malik's mother? His father? Why were they out on the streets? But she didn't press. Ruth's eyes, filled with both love and sorrow, told her everything she needed to know. That night, as Danielle tucked Amara and Malik under their blankets, she whispered a silent prayer. She didn't know what tomorrow held, but for now they were safe. And yet, on the far end of the neighborhood, a black SUV rolled slowly past the park where Malik and Ruth had been the night before. Its tinted windows hid the faces inside. The engine purred, then faded into the distance. For now. The days that followed settled into a strange but comforting routine. Danielle dropped Amara at school, took her shifts at the diner, and came home to find Malik waiting by the window, keeping an eye on Grandma Ruth. He had become protective of the apartment, as if guarding a fortress that might be taken from him at any moment. One evening, Danielle returned from work to find Malik scrubbing dishes at the sink while Amara read aloud to Ruth. Danielle's heart melted at the sight. She set down her purse and ruffled Malik's hair. "You don't have to do that, honey. You're just a guest here." Malik shook his head, stubborn. "I'm not a guest. You let us stay. That means I should help." There was something old about the boy's soul, something shaped by hardship no child should know. Danielle saw it in the way he carried himself, too careful, too watchful. But alongside the warmth, Danielle also began noticing things that unsettled her. Twice she caught Malik staring out the window at night, his small face pale in the glow of streetlights. When she asked what he was looking at, he'd shrug and mutter, "Just making sure." Once, she overheard him whispering to Ruth in urgent tones. She caught only fragments. "They might find us. We can't stay too long." Danielle froze in the hallway, heart pounding. Who was he talking about? And why did Ruth's eyes fill with fear instead of comfort? Later, when she gently pressed Ruth about it, the older woman only sighed. "You've done enough for us, child. More than you know. Just keep the boy safe." Her words hung heavy, a plea layered with secrets. That night, Danielle lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She thought about her own struggles, how close she had come to losing everything so many times. And now here she was, protecting a boy and his grandmother from what, exactly? The answer began to creep in sooner than she expected. The next morning, as she walked Amara and Malik to school, she noticed it, a black SUV parked at the corner. Its windows were tinted, the engine off, yet something about the stillness was wrong. She squeezed Amara's hand tighter and pulled Malik close. "Do you know that car?" she asked quietly. Malik stiffened, his grip tightening around her fingers. His eyes flicked toward the SUV, then down at the ground. "They found us," he whispered. Danielle's blood ran cold. She didn't know who they were. But she knew one thing. Her simple act of kindness had just tangled her in a danger far bigger than she could have imagined. That night, Danielle couldn't shake the image of the black SUV. Its presence lingered in her mind like a shadow that refused to fade. She double-checked the locks on her door, pulled the curtains shut, and sat by the window long after the children had gone to bed. At first, the street outside seemed quiet. But just past midnight, she heard it, the low hum of an engine. She peeked through a crack in the curtain. There it was again. The same SUV, parked a few houses down, headlights off, engine idling. Her breath caught in her throat. She reached for her phone, ready to call the police, but then hesitated. What would she even say? There's a car outside. Cars parked on the street all the time. But her gut told her this wasn't ordinary. Behind her, the soft shuffle of feet made her turn. Malik stood in the hallway, rubbing his eyes. "You saw them, didn't you?" he whispered. Danielle crouched down. "Malik, who are they? Why are they following you?" The boy's lips trembled. He looked torn between trust and fear. Finally, he whispered, "They're the people my grandma was running from. They want me, but not in a good way." Danielle's stomach flipped. She wanted to demand answers, but Malik's wide, terrified eyes stopped her. This was a child carrying secrets too heavy for his shoulders. Just then, Ruth's weak voice called from the recliner. "Don't scare her, Malik. She doesn't need to be dragged into this." Danielle turned to face the old woman. "Dragged into what? I took you in because you needed help, but I deserve to know what's going on." Ruth coughed, her frail body shaking. "It's not safe. For years I kept him hidden. His father's people, dangerous people, they don't care about the boy's safety. They only see what he represents." Danielle's pulse raced. "Represents? Ruth, what are you saying?" Before Ruth could answer, a loud knock rattled the door. Danielle froze. Malik clung to her, his small hands shaking. Another knock, this time harder, more demanding. Then, silence. Danielle's heart pounded as she crept to the peephole. Her breath hitched. The SUV was parked right in front of her building now, and standing at her door were two men in dark suits, their expressions unreadable beneath the dim hallway light. They knocked again, slower this time. Measured. Patient. "Open up," one of them said, his voice deep and commanding. Danielle's instincts screamed, "Don't." She backed away from the door, clutching Malik protectively. Her mind raced. Who were these men? Why were they after Malik? And most importantly, how much longer could she keep them out? The pounding on the door stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse, thick, heavy, suffocating. Danielle's heart hammered in her chest as she pulled Malik closer, his little body trembling against her. She glanced at Ruth. The old woman was pale, sweat beading on her forehead. Her lips moved, whispering something too faint to hear. "Ruth," Danielle pressed urgently, "you need to tell me now. Who are these men? What do they want with Malik?" Ruth's eyes fluttered open. She took a labored breath. "His father. He wasn't the man I thought he was. He got mixed up with powerful people, dangerous people. When Malik was born, they claimed he belonged to them. Said he was the key to something. Inheritance, legacy, I don't know. All I knew was that if they got their hands on him, he'd never have a real life. So I ran." Danielle's stomach twisted. "You've been hiding from them all this time?" Ruth nodded weakly. "But I'm too old now. Too sick. I can't run anymore. That's why I begged God to send us someone kind. Someone who could keep him safe when I no longer could." Danielle froze. The weight of the words pressed on her like a tidal wave. She had taken them in out of kindness, but now she was staring at a choice that could put her and Amara in danger. A sudden thud against the door snapped her back. The men were still out there, testing the lock. Danielle's hands shook as she reached for her phone. She dialed 911, whispering urgently into the receiver. "There are strange men outside my apartment. Please, send help quickly." Minutes dragged like hours. The men outside seemed to sense she had called for help. They knocked one last time, slow, deliberate, and then footsteps retreated. The SUV's engine roared to life, and the sound faded into the distance. Relief washed over the room, but it was fleeting. Danielle knew they'd be back. Later that night, as the children slept, Ruth called Danielle to her side. Her voice was faint, but her words cut deep. "You didn't choose this, child. But now you're part of it. Malik trusts you. And when I'm gone, you may be the only one left who can protect him." Tears stung Danielle's eyes. "I'm just a waitress, Ruth. I can barely take care of myself and my daughter. How am I supposed to fight people like that?" Ruth squeezed her hand with surprising strength. "You don't fight them with money or power. You fight with love. That boy needs someone who sees him as a child, not a pawn. That's worth more than anything." Danielle sat there long after Ruth drifted into sleep, her heart heavy with fear but also something else, a fierce determination. Whatever storm was coming, she would stand in the middle of it if it meant keeping Malik safe. And when Monday morning arrived, the storm came in the form of that same black SUV, this time pulling up right outside her apartment with its doors opening. Monday morning was supposed to be ordinary. Danielle had laid out Amara's school clothes, Malik was tying his shoelaces by the door, and Ruth was dozing quietly in her chair. The smell of coffee filled the apartment. But the moment Danielle peeked through the window, her heart dropped. The black SUV sat directly outside. Its doors opened slowly, and this time, instead of two, 4 men in dark suits stepped out. Their movements were sharp, deliberate, the kind that came with authority. Danielle's chest tightened. She quickly ushered the children to the back room. "Stay here. Don't make a sound." She closed the door, pressing her back against it for strength, then turned as the knock came, loud, commanding, impossible to ignore. Her legs trembled as she opened the door a crack. But instead of rough voices, a calm one greeted her. "Miss Brooks, we need to talk." Her eyes darted between the men. They weren't just thugs. There was something official about them. Their demeanor was less threatening, more controlled. One man pulled out a badge, flashing it quickly. "Federal Bureau," he said evenly. "We're here for Ruth Johnson and her grandson." Danielle's mouth went dry. "What do you want with them?" The man glanced at his partners, then lowered his voice. "You've been protecting them. We're not here to harm them. But you need to understand, Malik's father was involved in serious criminal enterprises. A major case. We've been tracking his people for years. The boy, he's under threat because they see him as leverage. Danielle's pulse raced. So you're saying you can protect him? Yes, the agent said firmly. But time is running out. Those men you saw before? They weren't ours. They were his father's people. And they will come back. Behind her, Ruth's weak voice called out, "It's true." Danielle turned to see the old woman struggling to sit upright, her eyes glassy but resolute. "They're right, child. You've done more for us than I ever dreamed anyone would. But it's time for Malik to be safe." Malik appeared in the hallway, his face pale with fear. "Grandma, no. I don't want to go with them. I want to stay here, with you. With Miss Brooks. With Amara." Tears filled Ruth's eyes. She beckoned him closer, placing a frail hand on his cheek. "Baby, listen to me. You're stronger than you know. And this woman, this angel, she'll always be part of your story. But you need protection now. Promise me you'll be brave." The boy broke down in sobs, burying his face in her lap. Danielle's own heart cracked, tears streaming as she knelt beside him. She wrapped her arms around both of them, whispering, "You're not alone, Malik. No matter where they take you, you're not alone." The agents waited patiently until Ruth whispered a final blessing over her grandson. When Malik finally let go, one of the men gently took his hand, leading him toward the SUV. Before he stepped out the door, Malik turned and ran back to Danielle, hugging her tightly. "You saved us," he said through tears. "I'll never forget you." And then he was gone. The SUV pulled away, its black frame disappearing down the street. The apartment felt unbearably quiet. That afternoon, Ruth's breathing grew weaker. Danielle stayed by her side, holding her hand until, with a final whisper of gratitude, the old woman slipped peacefully away. Danielle wept quietly, feeling the weight of loss and love all at once. She hadn't just opened her door to strangers. She had opened it to a destiny she never asked for, but one that changed her forever. Days later, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from the bureau, with a short note in Malik's handwriting attached. "I'm safe. I'm learning to smile again. Thank you for being the mother I needed, even just for a while. I'll never forget you. Love, Malik." Danielle clutched the letter to her chest, tears falling freely. Life returned to its old rhythm eventually. Work, bills, caring for Amara. But something deep inside her had shifted. She had always thought her life was small, unimportant. Yet her kindness had altered the course of another's life, and perhaps even saved it. And sometimes that is how lives are transformed, not by riches or fame, but by the simple, brave decision to open a door.